Well, Director Sanders, the air is definitely working in this facility, and we appreciate that. There's no complaints about the air.
Why I keep wearing a jacket.
So, Sean, are you all right? Well, good morning, everyone. Today is Thursday, August the 11th, and we are here at 903 Main Street, the Rockdale County Auditorium, right here in the heart of Old Town Conyers. And this is day number 2 of our budget. Is this day number 3? Okay, okay. Chairman, get with it. It's day number 3 of the budget work session, and we're rocking and rolling. Come on up, Director Lewis.
Good morning, Chair. Commissioner Washington, Commissioner Williams, Mark Lewis, CFO. Yes, indeed, this is day 3 and the final day of budget presentations for FY23. We have an abbreviated day today. We'll have 3 presentations today. We'll first hear from the Department of Transportation, Director Kelly, and then we'll go on to Planning and Development, and finally we'll hear from Parks and Rec. We will begin with the Department of Transportation, Section 26 in your booklet, and we'll have Director Kelly come present the Department of Transportation FY23 budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners, Chairman.
Good morning.
Hope you're having a wonderful day so far. So for 2023, we'd like to present to you the budget request for the Rockdale Department of Transportation. Next slide here. We'll go through some of the visions, the challenges, opportunities, the Envision Rockdale initiatives, organizational charts, the operational requests, personnel, and then we'll close out.
Okay.
So our vision is to create a vibrant, growing community where a high quality of life is supported by robust commercial growth and an educated workforce. So our mission here is a little bit different, but still meets the goals of Rockdale. So our mission is to be responsive to the citizens by constructing and maintaining a transportation network that promotes safe and efficient movement of people and goods within and throughout the county by adequately supporting economic development activity and by supporting an attractive community image. And then, of course, we have our values here of being dependable, reliable, responsible, courteous, efficient, innovative in our approach and thinking, and problem solving. Next slide. Looking to our opportunities and challenges, we've had several, as we come into 2023, several opportunities and challenges. Definitely, let me start with the challenges first. A good example would be the utility issues. One good one would be Grenade Road. We had some utility issues there, coordinations, and trying to work with that project. Supply chain issues has been a standard issue, not just here in Rockdale, but across the country. Whether it's DOT in Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, there's been supply chain issues that have limited or forced us to shift project schedules.
And Director, regarding your Grenade Road challenges, have you been able to overcome those challenges, or where are you in that process?
We are still in the process of working through those. We have come up with some solutions that we're implementing right now. So we're tracking those and making sure those come through fruition and monitoring how they're working out.
Is there a new time date for the completion of that project?
So right now we're looking at getting that one done in the fall. So roughly October.
October 2022?
2022.
Okay, all right, very good. Thank you.
So looking at opportunities, we have some repairs that we're looking for on Harrison Mill Bridge. That's a wood bridge that we have that's, I know a lot of our film and economic development companies here utilize that for the aesthetics of it. We're going to try to do some work on that. Old Covington Highway, that one's a highly traveled corridor for our industries, for our trucks. So that's always in need of some attention. South River Trail is one that's going to be dear to my heart as we add some of the beautification aspects to Rockdale County and give the pedestrians and bike trails a little bit of an upgrade and more for you and your families to go out and enjoy. So that will be a big deal. And we're looking at, of course, safe streets and roads for all. We have some initiatives we're going to implement there. And then the big one that's dear to my heart, Courtesy Parkway extension. Successes, we did submit the Courtesy Parkway infra grant. We're still waiting on that. Lake Capri is active, and we got that one off the ground, and it's in the works now, so the wheels are turning, which is absolutely positive. Sigmund Road, the traffic shifts and the sidewalk improvements are, you've seen that first shift happen. SPLOS 4A, the rehabilitation of our roads, that one is, I know, a major topic here. We have several roads completed, several subdivisions completed, and that is ongoing. And of course, the I-20 fence repair, that is right about 85% complete. There's some more background to work with that on maintenance, and we're going to coordinate with GDOT on that. So next slide, please. To dive more into our success stories, I'd like to bring up my deputy, Mr. William Brown. He has some additional information that he'd like to provide for you guys also. So at this time.
All right. Thank you, Director Kelly. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
All right, so my name is William Brown, Deputy Director for Rockdale DOT, and the video that's in front of you now is a quick time-lapse or hyperlapse video of the closed-out Klondike Roundabout video.
Yes, sir.
Klondike Roundabout project. We closed our project out this spring, and that is definitely a success that we want to, a feather we'd like to put in our hat for RDOT and for the community at large. Some other updates. Another project that was closed out this year, or actually last year, was the high mast lighting project along I-20. Currently, we have 5 construction projects that are active, including Sigmund Road Phase 2. We're roughly 50% complete with the progress of construction. We've completed one half of a traffic shift. That's at the beginning of the project at Lester Road through about Rockbridge, just beyond Rockbridge Road. The second shift should occur at the end of this month or early part of next month. We're anticipating at the very latest early part of next month.
Okay.
Still working on a target date. For another construction project that we have ongoing is Lake Capri, as Director Kelly mentioned. It's been a long time coming. We started or mobilized our utility contractor to get out there first. They started their activities back in middle of July, so last month. They're making progress, they're making some headway, have maybe 2 or 3 weeks more of activities to complete on their end before our prime contractor, who's under contract with the DOT, the county, can come out and begin their work. That project should be completed by the end of October, nonetheless. Grenade Road, as mentioned by Director Kelly, that is a challenging project. Our contractor is contending with material delays, supply chain issues, et cetera. But we're tracking at about 30%, and we should complete by the end of October.
Very good.
Yep. And then I'll share one final project. We'll talk about Farmer Road and Frontier in Lakeview Estates.
Right.
That is currently under design. That design should be completed by the end of this year. That is the target. Basically what that means, we're about 90% complete with the design plans. So we're looking forward to having that.
So once the design plans are complete, what's the next phase of that project for Frontier?
Yeah, thank you.
So with that project, ideally the next step would be to put the scope and bid that out. We're looking at potentially combining that with another project to assist the community with traffic flow and capacity. We have some historical roads in the area that have been deemed unsafe and were closed. So we're researching ways to incorporate this design with opening those back up, whether that be finding new ways to get people in and out while steadying the dam in place and repairing that dam. So we're analyzing that to see what we can do to incorporate the those projects and give the area, give Rockdale a brand new look and a brand new safe way of travel in and out of the community.
Very good. That's one we'd love to keep on the radar. So as you move forward with that, keep us posted, Director.
Absolutely.
Thank
that
you.
one's going to be very dear to my heart as well.
Thank you. Frontier Road at Lakeview Estate, the Sunrise community.
All right. Next slide, please. So goals and initiatives. So we're looking at some of the Kersey Parkway, breaking ground on the new extension from Flat Shoals to Old Covington. That one we still have slated for starting during the 2023 year, but we're waiting on that funding. We're tracking that closely. Completing phase 2 widening of Sigmund Road. That's also going to be a big one for us as we have Sigmund Road broken up into 4 phases. As phase 2 completes, we're actually looking at starting on design for phase 4, which I'll get to a little bit in the future as well. The multi-use trail on phase 2 is coming right along. You'll start to see those trails open up, and I hope to see people on bikes or walking that soon. They're working diligently to make sure that's completed and up to standard for us to use. We're looking at preliminary engineering from concept on Old Covington, from Plunkett to Rockaway. We're looking at possibilities of improving that corridor. We know we have some industries there, for example, Great Southern Woods, that has a lot of traffic. We're looking at ways to not just give them a better product, but give them a better access for 15 to 20 years down the road, not just 10. So we're looking at ways to improve that design right now.
Very good. Okay.
We just talked about Frontier Road Connector. Flat Shoals and High Tide, we're looking at some of these areas that may have been paved in the past, unpaved roads. We're looking at ways to bring all of those county roads to be paved now. So that's a new study that we're working on, combining several of these unpaved roads and paving them all. So we're trying to figure out best ways to approach that, attack that economically, and value engineer those and get those done.
And for point of clarity for the commissioners, the portion of Flat Shoals Road that is unpaved, as you know, a majority of Flat Shoals is paved, but there is a portion that goes into the DeKalb County area, the back portion of Rockdale of Flat Shoals that's unpaved. And then, of course, West High Tower Trail has been unpaved for years, and it is another unpaved road. I also want to point out, I think there were a total of about 5, maybe up to 9 roads across the county that were not paved, and a good number of those residents did not want the roads paved. They wanted to leave them as is, but I'm so glad to see that Director Kelly now has them on the radar to get some of those, and I was pleasantly surprised about West High Tower in particular, because that was one that they were pretty adamant about not ever paving. They wanted that road to stay dirt, but you've got it on the radar. So I just wanted to point that out, particularly when you have on here Flat Shoals, because everyone doesn't know the portion of Flat Shoals that we were talking about. I wanted to make sure we were talking about the west end of Flat Shoals.
So because this is Finally, I need to bring it closer. This is the portion of flat shows that you and I have been talking about.
Yes.
So when I can give an update that the preliminary engineering should start next year.
No, we actually have already started some of the soil samples and the testing on it. So we're already started on
I'm sorry, that you've done what?
soil samples and testing.
Soil samples?
Yeah.
Okay. And
So we're doing some of the investigations to see what our options are.
okay. Okay. Thank you.
So next we have phase 4. We're looking at widening phase 4 on the east side of the county, Sigmund Road, redesigning that to make sure our concept ties into I-20 perfectly, and a road that would give those trucks a easier route in and out as they get to their destinations. We're looking at a sidewalk program to improve and expand sidewalks that are ADA compliant here in Rockdale. And then, of course, a updated bridge maintenance program for the bridges here. Next slide, please. So, continuing with some of our strategic plans. First off, we're going to be looking at a 2023 comprehensive transportation plan, an updated plan. Now, with this, I definitely want to include, it's a separate portion, but our transit plan. So we're looking at a two-pronged plan here, but this is going to be updated to give us a future look at the growth and where we need to be expanding roads, new roads, and building these connections for our general public. Also with that transit portion, we talked about this before, we're looking at now ways that we can have microtransit to get from the south to the north and so on for services to our hotspots. So that's going to be a major part of our initiative for 2023. Quality of life, coordinating with General Service on South River Trail, that's going to be a big deal, I believe. I think there's lots of opportunities there to maybe tie into some economic development that will be positive and give us some new opportunities that people will enjoy and love. Efforts also for getting a little deeper into some of the projects we have, the millings and the pavings, to improve our gravel roads that if people want to stay on the unpaved roads, we can better accommodate and maintain those. We're looking at our work orders internally, bringing the amount and the speed we respond to those, improving that. So we're actually working on an internal production program with Deputy Brown to make sure we expedite those as quickly as possible. For the next, we're looking at SPLOS. This is a future program we're actually implementing and putting in the work now for resurfacing of roads. Typically, I guess my predecessors have looked at the subdivisions. We're not going to go away from that fully. We're still going to look at subdivisions, but we also want to give the right amount of attention to the arterials and the collectors. G's Mill, for example. Good Road. You have several roads that are like Honey Creek that need some attention. Portions of Honey Creek need some attention. Flat Shoals has portions that needs attention that we need to address. Because I want to make sure that we're giving those roads, as we look at this infrastructure, pavement seems to last 10 to 15 years. Well, once you start getting out of that, we want to not wait to the end for you replacing the whole thing. So we want to start jumping on some of this infrastructure now and not having to replace the costs related to a 15-year road as opposed to going ahead and hitting it at 9 or 8 or 9 or 10. So that's what we're looking at now. So you're going to have 2 SPLOS coming into the next cycle.
Very good.
And then, of course, the signage and safety. We want to keep our roads safe, so we're looking at making sure our operations for better signage, better striping, and pavement markings. So that's going to be something that we're going to look to and upgrade on these existing roads. Next slide, please. This is our current organization chart. We had 2 vacancies for mowing supervisor and civil engineer 2. Next slide. Going forward, we'd like to look. Can you back up a slide for me, please, sir? Yes, there we go. Had a few changes. We're looking to fill that mowing supervisor spot. We're looking for some assistance with inspectors, for construction, an expert for that, and a signal expert. We're looking to reclassify our office manager role. We have added some additional roles for a technician to help us with some of these projects. An interim signals and sign supervisor. We're adding that as well. And then, of course, you still want to fill that civil engineer 2, but we want to buff that role up to help with programs that we're going to bring in, like the ADA compliance sidewalk, stuff like that.
So Director Kelly, I think I heard you very clearly say that you're interested in getting a signal, someone to work part of your signal sign crew?
Yeah, so we're looking for a signal and sign supervisor. We also have an inspector for the project, so 2 different roles.
Right, and the transportation inspector, tell us a little bit about their role. What will that person actually be doing?
So, for example, as you have Sigmund Road, it's a 4-phase project, really.
Right.
We're in phase 2. We have tie-ins along there from Urban Bridge to Lester Road. Those signals, if they're new or we're having to accommodate flow, that's a corridor timing that we need to upgrade and make sure helps capacity. So we're not holding, 5 or 6 minutes when we could be letting the flow each way, letting the flow be constant. So that signal supervisor will work and coordinate on those projects that's directly to make sure that those timings, the corridor, not just that one location, that one street, the whole corridor flows properly.
Makes sense. Okay. Well, and I wanted you to kind of expound on that for the purpose of people listening and watching. Oftentimes when they hear all of our acronyms or sometimes our titles, they don't necessarily know. So I just wanted to keep in mind that some of our regular folks are listening, lay people, you want to explain it in a way that people can certainly process what you're saying, and they can almost visualize some of the role and responsibility that you're describing. Sounds good to me. I think with all the work on Sigmund Road and all of those tie-in roads or surface streets that back up to Sigmund Road, certainly it makes sense that the signals, the traffic signals, are synchronized all the way down Sigmund Road so that the flow can move the way it needs to, and some people trying to get out of their subdivision can get out without having to stay there all day wondering when the light's going to change. I've seen a few of those already. So that's good. You helped us grab that. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Next slide, please. So this is just a quick shot of our operating expenses from 2022 to what we're looking for in 2023 to help us with our initiatives. As you can see, we were right at 3.7 for 2022. We're still at 3.7, but we're a little bit above. Have a change of about 45,000, just 44,165 to be exact. We believe this will give us the opportunity to bring in staff to help us with those projects, especially like the signal expert. So.
Yeah, and as I was continuing to think about the signal inspector you talked about, or signal supervisor you described, certainly that would not be the only project that he or she would be working on, because we've got, as I mentioned, several other areas in the county that could use a little nudging when it comes to being in sync with the traffic flow, because we've had some complaints from folks about why they're sitting at a particular intersection for so long. So, but certainly matching up with the work that's happening on Sigmund Road, that's a plus, but there's multiple other projects for them to key in on beyond that particular project. Is that correct?
Correct. Just move from east to west on the county. Flat Shoals could use some attention for that corridor. Honey Creek, for example.
Yes, that's one of the biggest complaints on Honey Creek.
So there are several roads. Old Covington, it kind of parallels in some respects Sigmund. I know there's industries on Old Covington that get lots of attention. Those, we need to have some of those lights timed better. As we go through and we look at widening or improving some of these areas, Honey Creek, for example, if we widen that, that's going to need to be redone as far as signals to make sure everything flows properly. If it doesn't, you'll have congestion that we already have, and we want to eliminate that.
Sounds good.
So I have a question on this page. So why is the personnel services and benefits going down
So
when you've asked for some
some
new
of this would be,
positions?
typically some of this services would be consultant. We're going to look at some of this coming back in.
I think Director Holmes is anxious to say something.
So, but a large part of that is also the personnel that we're looking to bring in. But CIT was a team that left and transitioned to another group. So there was a large part of that.
So Director Holmes, come on up and help clean it up. You glued to that seat. I don't know what you're sitting there for. Come on up here and explain it. You help with the transition?
No. Good morning, Chairman, Madam Commissioners.
Good morning.
We did move the CIT to Planning and Development.
So what is
The market
CIT?
studies in there, the Community Improvement Team.
Thank you.
So it was once placed in RDOT, and now it's in Planning and Development under Code Enforcement.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That cleared it up. All right. Director Kelly, you got good backup. All right, back on track.
All right. Next slide, please. So this just gives a more in-depth snapshot for our operations request, for the admin operations, maintenance, paved streets, traffic engineering, unpaved roads, and highways. Really, it's kind of self-explanatory, but if you go to the next slide, we can do a little bit of a dive in. Next slide, please. For the admin, the largest factor for this would be we still need help with professional service. Some of the heavy designs, that still will be consultant assisting with that. And then there's some educational training as we maintain our search for GDOT. We have to meet some of those certifications to keep everything in line and relevant to meet standards. PMP training, NICET training for some of our inspectors as we try to bring guys up. We look to educate from within and promote from within when we can. And then, of course, we have some major parts as we grow. We have had some issues with inflation and fuel costs. I think that's standard across several departments, and that's not just a Rockdale thing, that's a national thing. We have seen those issues pop up for us as well. Next off for our other maintenance, for our contractors, mowing the line of sight, right away, parking ride, dumps, that stuff has also gone up as well. So we need some assistance there. Paved streets, materials, potholes, replacing or repairing, patching, in the wintertime, some of the snow materials that we use. Everything seems to be compounding. So traffic engineering is similar for striping. We're looking to redo more roads. We have some infrastructure issues as we've gone through and done some of our surveys with our consultants. We have seen some of our infrastructure, the age is starting to show. And with our traffic engineering, we want to make sure we try to bring some of those infrastructure roads up to par. And that's what that's about.
So one of the things that what we certainly need to do, I knew at one time we had on our website, on the county website, we had a list of roads that were slated to be on the list to be paved. Oftentimes, staff and I receive emails, and I'm sure maybe even the commissioners may get inquiries from citizens about when their road will be paved or resurfaced or what have you. A lot of times what citizens don't know is that there are certain roads in disrepair or certain condition which puts them higher up on the list than others. I think there's 133,000 square, how many?
530 is approximately.
530 in terms of roadway in Rockdale County. Prioritizing is based upon the conditions.
And capacity, yes.
And capacity. What I want you to do is think about creating a priority list and go back if we don't still have it. I'm not sure if it's out there or not. It used to be on the website, but giving folks a list of those roads that are what you in your department have deemed critical in nature and that you're going to make sure you put on the priority list. When a citizen goes to that website, they may or may not see their road on the list because it may not be on the high priority. Doesn't mean that we're not going to resurface or repave the road, but what the list indicates are those roads in the county that are more critical in nature. And I think that would help to some degree.
Yes, sir.
To some degree.
I would also suggest maybe that you take some pictures of the high priority roads so that people can see the condition of some of those high priority roads, because I had mentioned a road to Chief Cabe that I thought that it should be paved yesterday. And when he told me that there were roads that were in worse condition than that one, I can't even imagine it. So if you could take pictures of what we are prioritizing, maybe people that are in a subdivision that has minor problems can see what we are prioritizing and the amount of money that we have to allocate to these priorities.
So real quick, not to go off on a tangent, but we definitely try to, when we're speaking with the public about their roads, these roads, just rule of thumb, just the topping itself is $1 million a mile. That's kind of a just basic rule of thumb. And you have different...
You say that again and say it where we can hear it clearly. It's a what?
So
just the topping itself.
The top layer.
Yes, sir.
Not the excavation and the dirt work to roll it and make sure it's flat and any issues that are underneath. That's just the top layer. Approximately $1 million a mile.
$1 million
a mile.
Okay, say it like it is. So, just say it where they can get it. I want that. That's what she just said.
That changes when you add in utilities, gas lines, the powers. All those things affect that road. So you're adding that $1 million plus utilities, 250 or whatever that number is. So that throws things off. Signals are going to throw, if there's a required signal, the complexity of that signal and the capacity required is going to add to that $1 million. So when you're looking at these projects, they can balloon quickly for a large population or metropolitan area. So it's very easy to see, well, that road, it looks good. The signals, the utilities, that's going to fail if you look at the whole picture.
And typically, citizens are not taking that kind of look. First of all, they're not engineers like that. When someone sees a crack or a pothole in a road, or from their surface eye view that a road needs to be either repaved or resurfaced, that's typically all they're looking at. You just educated us, telling us there's a lot more that goes into it than just the paving and just the resurfacing of the road. And that's what a part of what Commissioner Washington was saying about educating the general public. It's not just the road. We can certainly send crews out and patch up a hole. That's one thing. But to really resurface and maintenance a road to the capacity that it gives us more longevity down in time is much more involved and the cost, he said, $1 million per mile, and not to include all of the utilities. Then he went on to say that if there's a traffic signal involved with that, it is even more complex than that. That kind of education has to be in a way where people can understand it, they can access it, and they can understand it when we're talking to them at the various HOAs. That kind of information, even the bullet point talking pieces, you can arm the commissioners with that information so they can speak very intelligently and respond in your absence, because everywhere they go, you're not tagged along with them. But this is the kind of thing that I think will benefit people to know beyond just a road that looks one way. I even like her idea about the pictures. I think pictures is a thousand. It says a lot, because when one citizen think their road is in grave condition, and they see a picture of a road across town, and, oh, okay, well, all right, I guess I will wait until.
Well, not only that, the pictures and the approximate cost that it's going to take to repair this. And so that people can see how we're prioritizing the fixtures of the road, but the amount of resources that it's going to take to get the roads fixed.
Okay.
Thank you, Director Kelly.
If I could go ahead and move to the next slide, please. So to our personnel, we're looking for really, we could always use help, but these are 4 targets that we've looked at for our engineer, assistant program coordinator, the inspectors, 2 roles that we talked about, then our office manager. Pretty straightforward there, but just looking for help to, as we grow and try to tackle more, that's kind of where we're at.
So if you're reclassifying that office manager, you have a increase of $95,000 plus. Why is that?
Good morning again. You are correct, Commissioner Williams. The reclassification would be an existing position, and it would be the difference. What he has listed here is the total estimate, so we would minus out the actual current salary and adjust it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next slide, please. And so we have justifications for those. We talked about the signal a little bit. That is still the case. Need some help there. For construction, these inspectors would be essentially monitoring the every day-to-day aspects to make sure that the quantities are correct. The material is placed. If we're designing it for 15 years, we're going to get 15 years. Prime example, we are talking about Lake Capri. It's designed for between 40 to 50 years. Well, if it's not installed properly, it's easy for that 50 years to drop to 20. So making sure everything is installed to specification. And that's what you need those inspectors for. Moving to the office manager.
Can I ask you a question? So we do not have inspectors right now?
I'm looking for internal. So we do have inspectors that we are able to bring on via consultants.
Gotcha. Okay.
So those are two different things. And then our office manager, we just discussed that one. Looking to expand that role a little bit, give the office manager some project management responsibilities as well. And then, of course, our engineer, looking to do more than just design, but do some implementation and our initiatives. For prime example, the sidewalk program. That'd be an excellent program that we could use assistance with. We could make sure it's ADA compliant, and we could spread that throughout Rockdale. So, next up, please, if you could. So would complete my presentation for the Rockdale DOT. Would we have any questions?
Commissioner Washington?
I think I'm asked them all. Thank you.
Commissioner Williams? Director Kelly, thank you so much. You and Deputy Director Brown, appreciate the leadership. Thank you so much.
We are rolling. Good job on time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Director Kelly. Next, we will have Planning and Development, and we have Director Kalanis Johnson here to present the budget for Planning and Development, number 24 in your guide. Kalanis.
24.
Good morning.
Good morning, Director
Madam-
Johnson. Good morning.
Great. Kalonus Johnson, Director of Planning and Development. I want to go over the 2023 budget for Planning and Development. Next slide, please. Here you have the presentation agenda per slide, vision, mission, values, how we are relevant to, the goals are relevant to Rockdale, the countywide goals, org charts, operational requests, personnel requests, so on and so forth. Next slide, please. The vision for planning and development is basically we want to strive to ensure that the natural and built environment of the county is safe, sustainable, and suitable for the current as well as future development opportunities. Our mission is providing consistent and coordinating customer service with both internal and external. Internal, obviously, is the intra-departmental coordination we have with other departments, and obviously external developers, citizens, and the like, to support planning and development throughout the county. Our values, obviously, customer service, very important, being compliant with applicable laws, state regulations, so on and so forth. Integrity, doing the right thing. Not only when people are watching, when people aren't watching. Integrity is very important. And obviously support. So, all right, next slide, please. A few of the successes that we've had so far, a lot of new land development processes. This is my, I think, 19th month here, and so we've implemented several new land development processes to make things more efficient. Again, economic development, land development coincide, can't have one without the other, symbiotic relationship. And it was great for me to follow RDOT because some of the things they mentioned, some of the roadways projects are consistent with where we have land development proposed. So very important. New projects, economic development activity, several projects, whether it's non-residential in terms of warehouses, mixed use, commercial retail, and obviously the residential development, whether it's townhomes, single-family residential developments. Very important, very critical to the future. And as I just alluded to, interdepartmental coordination. We have weekly coordination meetings with the RDOTs of the world, the Rockdale Water Resources, as well as a fire marshal, so on and so forth. Very important, very critical. Opportunities. Well, we're in a fast-growing county. We're in the fast-growing county because we're in a fast-growing region. Robust workload. It never stops, never ceases, and so which is good. Opportunities, valuable experience for those that are working now, and some of the folks we'd like to obtain is that you will get valuable experience in terms of land development, interdepartmental coordination to see how things can go from where they are now, 5, 10, 20 years down the road. So those are some great opportunities that we have for existing staff and proposed staff. Obviously, there are challenges. We've had high turnover, which is, again, we've heard the great resignation. That was something indicative not only of Rockdale, but nationwide, dealing with the pandemic. We're no different. We deal with that as well. Fast-paced environment. It's not for the faint at heart. We go, very aggressive, but it is what it is, so it's part of it, part of the culture here. And the market demand. The market demands when it comes to getting infill development, not only going out areas that are properties that people are trying to sell and make new development. They may have something that needs to be repurposed or rebranded, but the market comes in where people wanting to do small businesses, home-based businesses, or repurpose shopping centers and the like. But again, the market demands us and it contributes to the high, fast-paced environment. So these are some of the successes, the opportunities and challenges that we face now and will continue to in FY 2023. One of the things I'd like to also mention is, again, I talked about the interdepartmental coordination. You hear capacity, west side of the county, coordination with water and sewer. Great coordination effort in terms of interdepartments. And again, RDOT just kind of mentioned some of the things that they talked about. When I heard the Lake Capris of the world, the old Covington highways, the Sigmund roads, it's amazing that that's where some of our more dense development is occurring. And so it makes sense that from a symbiotic relationship that what RDOT is faced with improving, it's also where some of our key development projects are also trying to locate. So next slide, please, sir. FY 2023 goals and initiatives. Again, following Envision Rockdale, we have the for infrastructure and transportation, making sure we increase sidewalks and non-motorized options. You heard RDOT talk about areas where, for their development regs, they're requiring sidewalks and sidewalk master plan, but we require sidewalks for frontage for residential as well as non-residential development, making sure that the developers come in, that they do their role, do their part in terms of increasing our infrastructure. Non-motorized options, trails and paths and things of that sort, not only internal to the developments, but connecting to other developments, good for green space and open space. Requiring lighting and utility improvements. Again, you heard from RDOT the importance of utility improvements. That's some of the things we require as well in terms of some of the new development that's forthcoming. Economic development, supporting local small businesses through permitting and education. Goes without saying, we were tasked with putting together a graphic, if you will, to show if you want to start a business, home base or commercial outside of your home, a day in the life. What do you do when you come to our office, getting information, whether you have to get compliance with environmental health state, whether it's restaurants, so on and so forth. We're not only looking at the large-scale businesses, large-scale employers, but the mom and pops, the local individuals here that have aspirations for starting businesses. It's very important that we support those as well.
So, Commissioners, one of the things as Director Johnson catches his breath, one of the things that Chief Cabe is working with planning and development on, and the Director just alluded to it, is creating a one-step, one-page document for a potential entrepreneur or new small business type person who doesn't know the process of starting up a business. So when that individual comes to the Planning and Development Department, to their office, they're handed this one-sheeter. And this one-sheeter takes them from A to Z as to how to get your car wash, your beauty salon, your barbershop, your ice cream shop started. You've got a person who's excited. They've got $100,000 that somebody's left them, but they know how to bake cakes, but they don't know how to start the business process of where is it properly zoned, where should I put this location, where all of those things. And that's where planning and development comes in to show them, to coach them, and really to mentor them with a one-sheeter that gives step-by-step instruction as to how to get that. The goal is to get that one-sheeter, that same information on our website.
Absolutely.
So people can access it, absolutely. So people can access it and they'll know how to do it. They'll come into our offices with a little bit more education. The average person just don't know what to do, what it entails. I think a part of our responsibility is to guide and direct someone who's excited they got $100,000 in their pocket, they want to start a business, but they don't know how to get it off the ground. We've got an explanation, a sheeter that will help direct and guide and make sure that person will check off each box in terms of getting their dream business off the ground. So we're looking forward to that. I know, Chief Cabe, you want to give us a little update as to where that is, because I think that's part of your internal process review with the executive team. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. And Director Johnson and his staff presented this to the executive team within the last week and a half, and we have some recommendations, and once the flow chart is tweaked, then yes, it will be posted and advertised for area residents. And also, Director Johnson intends to meet with the chamber and make sure that the chamber is aware of the flow chart as well, so that they can give it out to potential new entrepreneurs that approach the chamber for membership.
That's very good update. I want to make sure I give credit where credit is due. Inside Director Johnson's department is a young lady by the name of Amy Davis. Amy was tasked with this, and she really was responsible for putting this together and providing, as the chief explained, a draft, a working draft that's now going through the review with the executive team. So I want to say thank you to Ms. Davis for her leadership in pulling all that together.
And following along with the supporting local businesses, one thing that leadership has tasked us with is an individual's approach, not only saying where they can and cannot do certain things because of zoning and other restrictions, but where can they do it? And because we don't want to be a dream stiller or so forth, but you may not be able to do something at a particular portion of the county. You have a good vision, a great idea. Let's show them where they actually can commit this. And so that goes along with the actual supporting of local small businesses as well.
So can I just say something here? As you've been talking about this educational process and the list of everything that people need to do, but then you just mentioned, that this might be a poor way of doing it. This would be a better way to do it. So it made me think back to my years of teaching where we had a rubric, and we would give the students a rubric on here's the very basic minimum and not acceptable, and different grades all the way to this is the excellent way of doing something, so that they can see those different gradations between, yeah, this might be okay, but it's really not very good, to all the way to, this is the prime way to do something.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Williams, when I was listening I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm just that old, but also in this.
I think he called you old.
Well, no, I'm just talking about her time in education in the classroom. But it reminded me of when we are now setting a new password, and the thing says weak or strong or good. It gradually takes you until you get that password at a reasonable and acceptable state where it's strong enough that you can actually use that. And what she's talking about is taking those steps with that new or potential business owner all the way from start to finish.
Yes, and
what's
it
acceptable.
delineates, starting with this is unacceptable to what is acceptable to what is best practice.
Right.
All the way through, so that they can see those differences.
Well, I think that money is a key component in that. And if we give people whose bottom line is money a minimal standard, a lot of times people would take the minimum as opposed to the best practice because of the fact that they don't have to put a lot of resources in. I would prefer that the excellent would be our base standard and tell them this is what we want in this community, so that we don't have a minimum, because I think most people who are looking at making money or dealing with money, they're going to go with, well, this is all I have to do to get by, and we're going to get more of the minimal. Whereas we say this is the practice that we want in this community, and that's the excellent standard. Then that's what we'll get in this community. So I would prefer not to have the minimal, just the excellent.
Great point. It's amazing you mentioned that, Commissioner Washington. I have meetings next week with some proprietors regarding locations, requirements that, for instance, something that requires a mixed use needs multiple uses. They may want to do one use. They may feel as though, based on their mindset, this is the highest and best use. But if it's located in an area that needs a shot in the arm, needs some attention, we may say, well, the standard says this. We've told people that previously you have to do it this way, so we can't deviate. So being consistent, but making sure that the county standards are adhered to. And so that's a great point. Thank you. Yeah.
The next part of that is what is needed from the county to raise our standards. So that's where I would like to go.
The next bullet, actually. Good segue. The revising and amending ordinances to, because they're fluid. What was applicable 6 or 7 years ago may change now in terms of ordinances, setback heights, building materials. You want to be consistent with what's around the region. Just because something may be a storage building, it's not the metal roll-up doors now. It looks more aesthetically pleasing. And so what are the standards? What can we do that the neighbors won't object? And so making sure ordinances are revised and amended as necessary. Great, good segue, yeah. All right, moving along. And also with the economic development, coordination with our Conyers Rockdale Economic Development Council. very important. Mr. Hanna, in terms of monthly activity, some of the things he's pursuing, you have solicitations. He gives our department requests in terms of site, location specifics, utilities, and so on and so forth. That's also part of economic development. That's part of that interdepartmental coordination. Moving on, quality of life. Open space requirements for projects, I just mentioned that earlier. Again, that's some of the requirements, the additional conditions for rezoning. If you want to come in, whether it's a dog park, pavilion, something that will add to the quality of life for a project. Just not coming in and putting a bunch of homes or of that nature. So very important. Image and beautification focus, code enforcement, trash, CIT, community improvement team. No one wants to come in and invest a lot of money to bring a potential business to the county if we don't show our own concern with trash, litter, imaging, and so very important. Enforcing compliance goes right along with that previous bullet, and so that's why in a little bit we'll mention some of the expansions with staff, community improvement team with code, how it goes hand in hand with land development and economic development. Education, workforce development, again, coordination, new expansion, schools, permits, very important. Utilization of interns. We've been in communication with Rockdale Magnet. COVID, again, pandemic kind of threw us back in terms of getting interns. We need them dearly. In the fall, that's something else we want to look forward to, making sure some of the younger individuals come in and learn what we do, how they can be a part of it in terms of as they pursue their future. Social investment. Civic Innovator Program, something that talked about last year, still the wheels are in motion. This is something that leadership definitely going to push in 2023, helping those elderly, low-income individuals that are out of compliance through no fault of their own, help them to become compliant.
Explain that a little bit more.
So basically, Civic Innovator Program will be, for instance, you have an elderly citizen that may have lost a spouse recently. They may have trucks in the yard. The home may be in disrepair. And so according to our ordinances, they may be not in compliance. Mm-hmm. Instead of us going out and citing them and writing them up, the lawn may be over 10 or 12 inches. Let's educate them. They may want to become in compliant, but they may not have any resources. We have vendors that we will work with to, whether it's towing of vehicles, doing repairs to gutters and siding, whether it's painting, so on and so forth, but that will help these individuals to become compliant. It's easy to cite them and go to magistrate court and go through that process, but it'll be a win-win, helping someone that needs some assistance, at the same time showing that we're trying to help citizens, those that need it. And so that's something that we have yes ma'am.
Oh, well, I was going to ask if we could think about putting, and I know it's a little outside the box, but a mental, a therapist or somebody. I had an elderly aunt who had a car that was, she couldn't move it, she couldn't drive, she can't see, she couldn't drive, it hadn't been driven in 20 years, not 20, but at least 7 years. It was sitting in her yard. She got cited for it, but she would not move that car because to her it was taking away her independence. It was all these things. She couldn't, we eventually just had to take it away and not tell her because she couldn't see it anyway. But the point was that a lot of times when you're dealing with elderly people and taking away their things, it's more than just removing their things. So maybe if we can figure out how to incorporate somebody that's therapeutic to go with code enforcement to talk to them about, just the psychological portion of getting rid of this thing in their yard that is making it aesthetically unpleasing, then that might help that whole thing and make it go a little bit better.
So Commissioner Washington is spot on. This civic innovation program that Director Johnson brought to us earlier this year is a wonderful program. We're partnering up with, first of all, with a lot of our local clergy. Oftentimes, we have seniors, not just seniors, I don't want to just limit it to the senior population, but we have citizens In our community, as he described, there may be a truck or car that has an emotional or perhaps a sentimental attachment, and a spouse or loved one has gone. The vehicle's been sitting there for quite some time. For whatever reason, they just don't want to touch it or drive it or move it. It means a lot to them. But now there's a compliance issue with code enforcement. To the point that the commissioner was making is one of the reasons why we've partnered up with the local clergy. Typically, a lot of those folks are members of some of our local churches. When we can communicate with the pastor and some of the men's ministries at some of these churches, they can go out and cut grass. They may be more willing to allow the deacon to move the truck or to move the car. And it keeps from bringing a 70-plus-year-old person into magistrate court and citing them when they're already on a fixed income or maybe not even have transportation to get to court. And it alleviates that. So that project is underway. We've not completed it as of yet. It is something that the director has submitted to our office. We're working very closely with him on it to get this program hopefully up in 2023. There's a lot to it. It's not as simple as it sounds. In the interim, what we've been able to do, there have been a few unique situations that has come through his office, through code enforcement, and we've been able to partner with some local resources and have them to go out. And because what county government can't do on private property, the church can, or another nonprofit can do. That county cannot always go out and get on some of this private property and just cut somebody's grass or something like that. We'll be cutting grass all over the county in people's backyard. So there's a way around it, but all those things are certainly taken into consideration. When the commissioner was describing about the emotional connection, we know all too well about that. We've got a lady over in Millstead right now. The truck has been in that yard since the day her husband passed, and she didn't get rid of his truck, and she don't want nobody else to touch it. But we were able to get a hold of the pastor. She let them move the truck. We were able to cut the grass where the truck had been sitting all that time and reposition it, and we're able to talk her into getting a current tag on the truck. She did not get cited, did not have to go to magistrate court, and it looks more aesthetically pleasing for her and for her neighbors. So it's just some outside the box thinking. And also, as I got to give a shout out to our code enforcement manager, Mr. Doug Chandler, who does an excellent job with code enforcement and reaching. His job is not just about enforcement, but also compliance. And compliance includes education and talking to people and working with people and giving them, I'll give you 2 weeks, or I'll give you a week, or I'll give you 30 days. It's not just pulling out a citation book and writing a citation, but working with those very unique situations to keep from just sending everybody to magistrate court.
So my thought was, this sounds like there could be some grant funds available for this kind of a project, and I love the component of that emotional, mental health piece of it. And, my mind is turning as I'm listening and thinking about how, where some grant funds might be available to address that very need.
So it's amazing that I told one of our state representatives, and I don't want to give the name until we get further, she and I have been talking a lot about what we can do for the seniors, everything from the things I mentioned about taxes to resources. And she and I are supposed to meet this week to talk about maybe some DCA funding that might be available for things like this. So give us a minute. We're trying to be on it. So hopefully, as soon as
I would just suggest that we include that
absolutely
mental health component into the proposal.
Absolutely,
Because it takes me right back to my mother, who held on to newspaper clippings and all kinds of stuff because it meant something to her.
Right, exactly. And that's where just having to deal with it with my great aunt. I understand.
Director Johnson, sounds like help is on the way. So it sounds like you got some help coming in your direction with your civic innovation program. So please stand by.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I guess the last bullet is diversifying housing options. That's one of the things that, we have a lot of single-family homes here in certain areas of the periphery of the county, but areas along the Flat Shoals, Old Covingtons, the denser areas that are on the borders of the city, where it may require denser, smaller lots, things of that nature, again, to make sure that we have housing options for all. I know that Commissioner Williams, there was some talk of looking at some affordability summits and things of that nature, again, doing research to see what's working around the region, something else we can look at, what works here and all. And so just make sure that we're not trying to preclude any particular group when it comes to housing options here in the county. So that's another thing going forward we want to look into from a departmental perspective.
So I'm looking to see, I don't see that I have it in my inbox yet, but we do have a housing symposium coming up on August 22nd to take a look at what we have, what types of housing we have in Rockdale, what we need. I know that there will be a representative from Congressman Johnson's office there who manages the housing initiatives for the congressman. So that will be coming up in a week and a half or so.
All righty. Next slide, please, sir. Okay. Wow. I want to see this. This is our current organizational chart, where we are now as of today. We have a few vacancies, zoning manager, a planner, development plan review specialist. And again, we're one department, we have 4 divisions. And so in terms of the actual planning and zoning, missing 3 key components. Also a chief code enforcement officer, and for the code enforcement division, and the community improvement tech, 9 individuals. And so the next slide will show what the proposal will be filling these positions. And we've been working closely with talent management. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Director Johnson. Could you explain to us and the public what a code enforcement technology is? That
so it's a community improvement team.
Right.
This was something that was actually with RDOT for the last few years, but at one time it was actually part of planning and development before it went to RDOT. It's maintaining the right-of-ways, litter patrol, trash, illegal dumping. The vision that we have from leadership is the county dividing up into 6 zones. We're looking at, when we're fully ramped up, having 12 CIT, community improvement technicians, 12 total, 2 per zone, with trucks, routine patrol, so we can be proactive with addressing blight, legal dumping, so on and so forth. Not only we're looking at having 2 CIT technicians per 6 zones, also having 1 code enforcement. By transitioning the CIT from RDOT to planning and development, in the past it was always someone would reach out to RDOT, we would then reach out to the director of RDOT in terms of getting a CIT person out, but now we're one and the same. Mm-hmm. So we have a dispatch, we're gonna look at an admin coordinator, just make it a little more efficient. As I mentioned a few slides earlier, blight, imaging, trash, very important. It's something we have to be aggressive on to show potential investors that if you want to come here and invest in Rockdale County, we as leadership, we are serious about it as well. And so again, CIT is for the community improvement team. The positions will be CIT technicians.
Would we be able to come up with a comprehensive, proposed comprehensive routine for like lawn mowing that we can put on or advertise to the people that would show, okay, these are the right-of-ways that are projected to be mowed at this time, and these are the right-of-ways that are projected to be mowed at this time, or even with code enforcement. At one time, we did a code enforcement blitz where we advertised that in different places, we're coming to you we need for you to get everything together because we know that we're coming. And then we went out, we issued warnings, and then we went back out and issued citations. I think that went over very well because we had done the advertisement at first, and then we went out and, issued warnings, I think. And
Commissioner, you're
Exactly.
absolutely right. And I'm going to yield to the Chief Cabe in just a second because the war on litter kicked off on March 11th. It continues all year long, every day, and he's got another event coming up in October. But going back to what the commissioner is talking about, pre-COVID, code enforcement had engaged in a couple of cleanup blitz in several communities throughout Rockdale County. We posted out signage saying that, hey, we're coming into your community in the next 2 weeks or next 30 days, and these are the things that we're looking for. We also partnered up with some of our community partners to place trash bins and large bins so people can go ahead and start some pre-cleaning prior to us getting there. It went over really, really well. Then came COVID. When COVID came, we couldn't get out. When we brought employees back to work, some people didn't come back to work. So we were short in terms of help, and being able to go back and execute that plan. We're just now slowly getting back, keeping our fingers crossed, that we can do something like that going forward. In the interim, the wonderful idea of the war on litter, where we partnered with all of our county and city stakeholders and some community partners. I'll give a shout out to Cutters. What's the Bromel's name of his?
Excuse me,
Pro Cutters.
Pro Cutters Lawnscapes.
But Chief, tell them about where you are with the war on litter at this point that supports what Director Johnson is doing with code enforcement and community improvement.
Yes, sir. So, Commissioners, as you'll remember, on March 11th, we started the very first event for this year for the War on Litter, where we did have city and county participants, and of course all three commissioners participated as well. Coming up in the fall, we wanted to wait for cooler weather to get here, at least a little bit more comfortable. So the executive team at this point has identified a date of Friday, October 21st as our next combined date. So, of course, I'm announcing that now here in the public forum, but planning is in progress now for Friday, October 21st. One thing that will be different for the October 21st event is Director Johnson has been working with our talent management department, and through some additional resources that he has with CIT, along with some temporary staff that have been allocated that may be transitioning into full-time positions. We have all of those 6 zones covered with the same personnel patrolling those zones every day, looking for eyesores that are continuous problems. And the beauty of this is that they're working with code enforcement to identify those hotspot areas so that they can address those concerns and potentially make cases against those that are continuously violating in some cases. But for the October 21st event, it'll be a combined city-county event again, and I'm in the process of reaching out to the city to make sure that they can participate again, and it should be a great event.
Absolutely. So I think with all of these plans or wheels in motion, really, with the leadership of Director Johnson, again, Mr. Doug Chandler, who is our code enforcement manager, his need to have a chief code enforcement officer. There's a big difference between those two roles. The manager works strategically with the director and the deputy director in planning and development with outlining and identifying the areas in the county that needs to be addressed through both code enforcement and community improvement. The chief code enforcement officer would be the first responder in terms of a supervisor out in the street supporting the officers as they go from one area to the county to the other. But having those 6 zones was a great idea to put 2 community improvement people in each and every zone to make sure we stay on top of debris and blight in the community. It's been a challenge to get there because finding people to work, and particularly do this kind of work during the spring and summer, a lot of folks don't want to do it. And then, of course, there was the issue of pay. So what happened back in April helped a lot in terms of being able to attract people that would even consider doing this kind of work. It's a work in progress, but we've come a long way with cleaning it up.
But I think it's important for the citizens of Rockdale County to know how much that's going to affect. If we put together a aggressive plan like this, how much that's going to affect our budget next year. So I really would like this this whole plan to, if we could get the budgeted amount, not right now, but in a future BOC meeting or something, so that people can see when we do something like this, how much we have to spend in order to get a program up like this up and running.
Okay, all right.
I just want to respond to your mowing comment, Commissioner Washington.
Oh, sure.
When I mentioned right-of-way maintenance, CIT is strictly for the litter. The mowing and limbs and so forth will still remain with RDOT. So
Okay.
we didn't take the entire right-of-way function.
Well, we need that from you.
But it's still a lot of coordination between interdepartments as well, so, other departments.
So, Director Lewis, did you hear that piece from Commissioner Washington? I think that was really a small ask, too. That's just pulling a set of numbers out of the budget targeted just for this specific area. You can have that to a kind of PDQ.
Yes.
Please and thank you. Director Johnson?
Okay, so again, some of the personnel changes, as I mentioned, again, thanks to talent management, Director Holmes and our staff, we've been able to add positions for the 9 more community improvement team technicians. We've had some of the part-time, as Chief K mentioned, transition. We had a very successful job fair a couple weeks ago. Was able to fill 6 of those positions. Thank you. So we're still looking at, again, zoning, planner, and some of the other positions that you see on the screen.
Director Johnson, as briefly as you can, but with much substance, can you tell us what is a planner?
A planner is an individual that looks at change, physical change, what's existing now in the current state and what can be in 5, 10, or 20 years, bringing physical change to land. Make sure that that change is sustainable and won't have any negative effects to the environment. That's a pretty, close.
And very good. And what's the difference with a zoning manager, an administrative zoning manager?
Zoning is a little more technical in terms of codes, ordinances, some legality is what you can build, where you can build it, and to what degree. For our department, we want that planner to work underneath the zoning division. And so it would have the zoning manager will have some review over the potential planner and the development plan review specialist.
Absolutely, and we know that, and I really appreciate you breaking it down because a lot of people watching, listening, they don't know, and we want to make sure they understand the need and the distinguished difference between the zoning manager as well as the planner and how that flows in terms of planning and development as a whole. When you talk about smart cities, smart counties, and a progressive community, you've got to have those people in place. All of the economic development that we are experiencing and we have experienced throughout this pandemic, we've gone through some changes, and he talked earlier about his challenges of the turnover. We've lost some very good people due to several different reasons, and one of them were money in terms of planners and zoning managers. So these are critical parts to a successful planning and development department, to have a good zoning manager and a very good planner that's working in concert with the strategic plans of the county. One of the other things that the director made mention to was about old ordinances. What was on the books in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and even in some cases in the early 2000s are not applicable today. We've got to make some changes because when you talk about marketing and economic development, the trends are moving much faster than they did in the days behind us, commissioners. Things are changing quite rapidly. Banks don't bank the way they used to bank. They don't even have the same kind of setups anymore. And with technology moving the way it does, we have to stay on the cutting edge of those trends. So some of the things that we're doing between planning and development, roads, and all of the infrastructure of our community must meet the demands of where people are today. And that means every single thing we do. So I wanted to point that out because it comes full circle, but educating the general public, some people don't know the difference between those positions. They see it and they don't plan, okay, what is that? You know, so it's always important we bring forth the clarity.
Yes, sir. Next slide, please. All right, here in terms of budget summary, you see the first column, FY 2022 for both operating and personnel services and benefits. We came out to approximately 1.9 million. Proposing for FY 2023, we're going, increase a little bit to 3 million. Again, we're looking at getting another division with the community improvement team, as well as code enforcement. We mentioned throughout the presentation the importance of code enforcement. We were able to perform most of 2022 with 3 to 4 code enforcement officers. Well, to be fully ramped up, 8. And so when you fully ramp up, trucks, vehicles, supplies, so on and so forth, the costs are associated with that are reflected in that increase. So the change, as you see, will be 1.1 million from FY 2022 to the proposed FY 2023.
If I may, Director Holmes or Director Lewis, that number that Director Johnson just gave, isn't some of that money transferred from RDOT?
From the CIT.
I just wanted to make that clear. Yeah, thank you. Yes, the community improvement team transferring over. So the question that Commissioner Williams had earlier about the dollar amount being lower in RDOT,
right?
This is transferred over. So it's, yeah, okay.
And
Thank you, Chief.
Next slide.
So is that dollar amount, that's without the adjustment or with the adjustment, the 1.1 mil?
That's with the adjustment. The next slide, I'll break it down a little further.
So it was $285,000 deleted from transportation that's now moved into planning.
Like I said, we extracted the CIT function, not the mowing and the limbs and debris, just the litter aspect of it. So as you'll see, we'll break it down further here based on the line items for the various divisions. For instance, this current slide is showing in licensing permitting, pretty consistent, went up, almost $1,300. License permitting, that's the front line, customer service, individuals coming in. I want to put a pool, I want to start a business, I want to get something permitted, change business licenses, alcohol permits, so on and so forth. That's what the 1516 is from our department. Inspections, 7,200, building inspections, we outsource that. That is when people are going out, whether it's commercial, office, warehousing, whatever the case may be, making sure they're following the International Construction Code, making sure that what they're building is consistent. We don't want any liability, any issues that Rockdale County is allowing construction that's substandard.
Right.
So that is pretty standard in terms of the cost, didn't go up too much. Administration is the main office. That's myself and a few of the others. Again, 287 to 289 went up a nominal amount of $2,700. Code enforcement and the CIT, as I mentioned, because of the fact doubling, increasing personnel, those were the two largest bump ups, if you will. Because CIT didn't exist with us last year, it went from 0 to 48,000. And again, the code enforcement, as I mentioned earlier, we performed majority of last year with 3 to 4 because of turnover and attrition, but now we're up to 8. And so again, thanks to the coordination with both finance as well as talent management, 183,000 is what we're forecasting the need. And so total budget impact of $236,835 for operational for 2023.
So we can get You said 5 code enforcement officers for $183,000, $184,000?
Some of those positions were already in the budget. We just didn't fill them in FY 2022. The chief and, okay, here's Director Holmes.
Sorry. Good morning still. This particular chart is operational expenses. This has nothing to do with personnel, so I want to make sure we separate the two.
So these are vehicle, what is?
Yeah, you can explain, but they're not personnel.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next slide, yeah. The next slide will be the actual personnel, so.
So back to the operation, those are vehicles, what?
Equipment, vehicles, materials, technology, phones, and the like. But vehicles is definitely something that we had, new vehicles. A lot of our vehicles were 1999, 98, so they were phased out. So we're coordinating with General Services from that standpoint.
Let me ask you something else on the inspections part.
Yes, ma'am.
There's been a lot of questions asked about how we ensure that the new developments that are coming in are doing what they what they're supposed to do as part of if we change zoning, making sure that they are doing what they said they would do in their plans and permitting. Is that part of the inspections?
For example, doing what?
So, for example, if we if we say that we want open space or dog park or whatever, and that was one of the conditions in there for us changing the zoning.
Okay.
Is there anybody that goes out to make sure that they're doing what they said they were going to do? Is there anybody that if we say that we want a certain quality of building materials in the development of a subdivision, is there anybody that goes out to inspect to make sure that the builder is doing the things that we said that they needed to do as a condition of the rezoning?
The short answer is yes. Rezoning is the first part of land development, just telling you the standards of what can be built, the height, setbacks, so on and so forth. You have platting, you have land disturbance, but the ultimate goal is to get that certificate of occupancy, what we call a CO. Mm-hmm. In order to get that, you have to comply with the zoning conditions. We have a project, I know the chairman will definitely shake his head up, McCart Landing, just for example. That was platted back in 2005, and I don't think too many of us were here at the time, but because what was platted, what was recorded, they have to abide by that. Construction entrances, materials, so on and so forth. Come in, and I know Director Keller shaking his head. We would like to go in and scrub things up, but because what was the conditions and things that were approved, we can't change those. Right. What we're doing now is making sure on the front end, making sure that what we put in place now, 10, 12, 15 years from now, that we won't have those issues. So the short answer is yes. Before you get that certificate of occupancy to go out, before you get your plat, supply chain, another thing, he mentioned supply chain. We have a development that can't get transformers. So we won't allow any building permits. You're not going to build a home, have shells there, if there's no ways to get electricity to them. So that's not our problem. But the issue is that we will record your final plat, but we won't issue a building permit until those transformers are in. So when you hear rezoning, that's just the first phase of it. So and so before you get that certificate of occupancy, we go out, we do, some of the weekends I'm here, I go out and do landscape inspections, making sure trees are put where they need to be. So the short answer is yes. And so we make sure that before they get to that last phase, that the zoning conditions are adhered to, and you can't make any changes. If you look at some of our slides with our presentations, we always say that any changes, any deviations from the conditions have to go back through planning and development. And so if you say, well, yeah, we said we want to do 3-sided brick or whatever the case may be, water table here, you said that 2 years ago, we're going to keep you, you're going to make sure you adhere to that. So that's what things staff has to do. We have to have a constant follow-up with these developers and builders.
And we have sufficient staff in place to make sure that all of these new developments, because I just got Kretzy we in the running for a huge development, and they had to give the housing, our anticipated housing, and right now we have 2,295 units under construction. So do we have enough staff to make sure that what we've said in these multifamily and single-family homes, that they're doing what they've said they were going to do, so that we are keeping our end of the bargain to the citizens?
Well, the answer again is short as yes. I mentioned one of the vacancies is a development plan review specialist. Part of their role will be to kind of go out on site and assist our our building inspectors. But before these individuals get their permits, we have to sign off on what they're going to build. So by law, these are licensed individuals. We have a contract. If you're going to build floor plan certain ways, put the garages on the side versus front entry, you have to abide by that. You want to get your building permit. So I mean.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. So I understand the process. Do we have enough personnel to make that, to expedite that process so that it goes really smoothly, so it doesn't drag out for months, so that developers can come in, they can get what they need because we have enough personnel, or do we need more?
We definitely need one development plan review specialist. I mentioned interns. That's something we can look at, but we definitely need one. So that's a vacancy that I've actually listed. So
okay,
right. In addition to our building inspectors as well. So I mean the safe building inspectors. So they're the front line, but our development plan review will actually be the one that goes out weekly. Yeah, going out looking at plans, making sure again facades and so forth are consistent with what the plans say. So once that position gets filled, that will help us out a whole lot.
So Director Johnson, to bring complete clarity to it, we have 2,000 plus units that are under construction right now, as the commissioner pointed out. Currently, today, does your department have enough staff to address the follow-up and the follow-through with inspections to make certain that what's being done right now is done according to code and the quality of standard that we expect in Rockdale County and what we have agreed on by each of these developers?
Currently, we do not.
Yes or no?
No, currently we do not.
Okay, so how many inspectors short are you?
We're one, but there's another caveat: code enforcement.
Okay.
And code enforcement, when we say enforces the codes, they also make sure that what building permits, codes, they also go out and make sure setbacks and so forth.
Gotcha. So let's talk about that just for a second, because that's the space we're in right now. Right. When you think about code enforcement, who will also be a part of that inspection process, and you also talked about your plan person that you need on the inside.
Yes.
How many bodies, people, how many do you need?
We could use definitely two.
Okay.
Definitely two. Development plan review.
Okay, and when you think about the code enforcement side of it, how many there?
We have, well, with the 8, again, they broke it up into zones, so we're okay with the code aspect of it. So in terms of the administration, yes, definitely need, we could use 2 more.
Okay.
Right.
All right, and with the 8 you have over in code enforcement,
right, and
the 2 additional that you said that could help you,
yes, sir,
that will complete all of the inspection process required for your department to be able to keep up with the workload of what's happening?
That will help out, yes, sir, tremendously.
Okay.
What I would like to see, though, is something that some way we can ensure to the people that we're on top of these developments, maybe by assigning specific people to new developments so that they can keep up with, and so that we can tell the public if they see a problem or something is happening, they can alert this code enforcement officer or this inspector or something, so that the people who already live here know that we are making sure that developers are living up to their end of the bargain.
One of the things we do have, if I would, Director Johnson, we have a contract currently with Safe Built. And as part of the contract with Safe Built, they supply that staff augmentation in terms of making certain that we have enough people in the fields to go out and inspect all of these projects to keep up. When a citizen sees something that's out of order or that should not be taking place, and trust me, we get tons of those calls, we report that to code enforcement through planning and development. onto our safe-built inspector, who is paid by Rockdale County, by the way, to go out there and make sure that these people are in compliance. So I believe that with the current amount of work that we have enough contract relationship right now. What the director is saying is we need that additional code enforcement chief over on that side, and the two persons in the office will help expedite some of the processes of it. But in terms of the concern from the commissioners, inspection, follow up and follow through, making certain that they're doing what they need to be doing according to code, and we've got somebody out there that's overseeing those projects on behalf of Rockdale County. We do. That is safe built, right, in addition to the people that we have on the ground. Is that correct, Director Johnson?
Correct. Yes, sir. Commissioner Washington, every day our license permit analysts, we set the schedule around 4 o'clock for the next day. The safe built guys get a list of where they need to be on site for the following day, like today at 4 o'clock, they'll get it for tomorrow for Friday. Whether it's in the rough inspection, whether it's the end of it, whether it's the landscaping, which is pretty much the final. So there, you can't, I guess, bait and switch. And so we have a process in place, the short of it, to actually make sure that these folks are complying with the regulations. But we do have a system in place where we give the marching orders every day to go out on site, different phases of development. And so whether it's from the beginning, the framing, to the actual landscaping.
Director Johnson, what is your recommendation to both of the commissioners in the event that they get a text or call from a constituent saying they've noticed something that's out of order? What is your recommendation?
Give me a call. We'll jump on it. Give me a call. We'll send somebody out. I'll go out myself, but give me a call and we'll handle it.
We had one just last week on a road in South Rockdale County, and I called Director Johnson, and he immediately dispatched code enforcement out, because what these people were doing was completely out of order, and they had no permit to do what they were doing, and they shut them down dead in the middle of it. And sometimes people do stuff, they'll say they didn't know they were supposed to get a permit. Sometimes people just do what they want to do. So, but we were alerted by a citizen. They called me, I called Director Johnson, he dispatched code enforcement, they put a stop work order in place, and now that they're actually going through the process with magistrate court, because it's a bigger deal in terms of the amount of work that they've done. They've gone way over the limit, and they should not have done that. So it's not just a stop work order. We got to bring these people before the judge. Just to...
Yes, sir. Yeah. Any other questions, ma'am?
No,
Okay.
I'm good for now.
All righty. Next slide, please. Again, some of the operational requests. Again, briefly, the 1516, I mentioned license permit, alcohol permits. Derek Marchman, RAS is a responsible alcohol sales and service. If you are pourer, server, bartender, this is a certification that we have an annual contract with. You have to do, and he teaches these classes monthly. That's what part of that justification. 7410, staff augmentation. Ordinance rewrite consultants, that's administration. That's some of the things I've been in a lot of communication with Chief Cabe in terms of getting us, until we get these positions filled, getting us some staff augmentation. So that's what that 70,000 is for. The 7450 obviously is for code enforcement. Again, we've doubled code enforcement officers, uniform, supplies, so on and so forth. And again, the community improvement team, totally new division. The 48,000 is for everything that they need coming from RDOT to P&D. Next slide, please. Okay, personnel requests. Again, as Director Holmes has alluded to, she's going to come up.
That makes more sense.
Okay. Sorry. Good morning again. The request that he has, these things are already in place right now. So we do actually have a chief code enforcement officer position. We had a total of 7 CIT positions come from RDOT, and then we added additional 7 positions. So he has a total of 14 positions in that CIT division, and we also added an admin coordinator. So these requests that he has were the new department total. He currently has a funded positions for 35 positions for planning and development.
So it's a matter of hiring these people.
That is correct.
Okay, the Executive Director Holmes, that point of clarity is very important for both of the commissioners, because we wouldn't totally clear on that, so that clears it up.
Yes, these positions are funded with
Okay,
these
all
dollars.
right.
So are you saying all of those positions are already funded?
That is correct.
So there really isn't any impact to the
That is
budget?
correct. That's correct.
Got it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Next slide, please. And again, just the, as she mentioned, these are just breaking it down a little further in terms of the full-time equivalent and what they would cost us, but they're already funded. We just need to do some hiring, so pretty much. This concludes, unless you have any questions for myself, this concludes the FY 2023 presentation for planning and development, unless you have any questions.
Commissioner Washington,
I'm clear.
Williams. Thank you, Director. Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
I need a break.
We're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll go to which department next, Director Lewis?
We have Parks and Rec that will be up next.
Who?
Parks and Recreation.
Oh, okay. No, what you
Parks and
said. Okay,
Recreation.
Parks and Recreation. Okay. You said that in your Wisconsin voice, I think.
One, I did not want to interrupt Director Johnson's presentation, but the information that Commissioner Washington asked for is in the last page of the section broken down by the CIT.
Okay, well, feel free to interrupt me anytime. We talking about money. You the CFO. Stand up and interrupt.
I just want to make sure that you have
Yes,
that
sir.
information.
Yes, sir.
And what tab is the Parks and
That
Rec?
Planning and Development is tab 24, I believe.
No, Parks and Rec,
Parks and Rec.
25.
I'm sorry, I thought you were still referring to the.
Oh, we done moved on. Now,
We have moved on.
We on Parks
Yes,
and Rec now.
Parks and Rec is tab 25.
25.
I'm ready.
All right. We'll take a 5-minute break, and we'll be back here in 5 minutes, ladies and gentlemen.
So it's
All right, Director Lewis, I think the commissioners are back and we're ready, and it looks like Director Redmond is sure enough ready. We are ready to get with...
Yes, sir. We have our last presentation of the budget work session.
Which one is this?
This is, again, our last presentation.
Which one?
The last.
Oh, I thought that's what you said.
LAST,
Does
right?
Director Redmond know that?
Director Redmond, who is doing a presentation for Parks and Recreation for the first time, is aware that this is the last presentation for the budget work session.
That he stands between now and lunch and finishing, right?
Director Redmond is fully aware of the position that he holds right now. The last presentation of the budget work session.
In the words of Chief Cade, I'm glad we're all tracking.
You're tracking. Are you tracking?
Thank you, I am. And it is still morning, so good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Madam Commissioner.
Good morning. Good morning.
My name is Jason Redmond. I'm the Director for Parks and Recreation and Division of Senior Services, and I'll be presenting our 2023 budget work session presentation.
Yes, sir.
The presentation agenda, as you can see, we have 23 slides, but I will not be as long-winded. And the reason we have 23 slides is because of the depth of the staff that we have. So I'll explain it as we go along, broken down. Next slide. Our department statements, vision, mission, and values. The vision is to create a vibrant, growing community where high quality of life is supported by robust commercial growth and an educated workforce. We have two missions. Parks and Recreation strives to provide relevant and diverse family, arts, and cultural programming while improving our park facilities through upgrades and amenities that attract new and existing citizens, businesses, and tourism. For Senior Services, the mission is to strive to enhance the quality of life for senior citizens with dedication to serving elderly residents. We work to identify, develop, implement, and coordinate diverse programs and services to address senior citizens' needs. Our values are our conservation, health and wellness, and social equity. Next slide. Some of the opportunities and challenges that we've had for FY 2022, one of the big ones that you've heard several times is implementing esports programming into Parks and Recreation, which is a big deal. I spoke on that at a Board of Commissioners meeting. It's $1 billion business, great gateway for kids and young adults to get into a career opportunity. We also received 2 NACO awards, National Association of County Awards, one for Johnson Park Expansion and Teen Center, the other was for Costly Mill becoming a destination park. We have received several grants throughout the year. One in particular was from the HARC, the Hospital Authority of Rockdale County, and that was to provide inclusive swim lessons. The title of the program was Swimming for Everyone. Senior Services provided 111,000 meals to seniors during pandemic period, and also provided elderly residents 92,645 units of service in 6 primary areas during that time. Some of the opportunities that we have is the engagement of community, capturing skills and volunteerism, some of the funding and grants, efficient use of resources, partnering with PTA schools, communities, and local service organizations, which has been a big deal for us, helping us to expand our community outreach. Senior Services Opera Assisted Program has added much needed support for seniors in the areas of homelessness prevention, rental assistance, home repair, utilities, and technology. And another very important piece was the Veteran Transportation Program. And this is the program that was implemented to get veterans, senior citizens, to and from appointments and needed places that they normally wouldn't be able to get to through the Senior Center. Also promote sponsorship program for community-based businesses to become more involved in the partnership with Rockdale County. Some of the challenges naturally are funding. COVID was a big one. Natural disasters play a part in that. Parking and traffic play a part in some of our challenges, as well as the inflation. Next slide. Goals and initiatives for 2023 under infrastructure and transportation. Continue to develop the trail from the monastery to Johnson Park. That's a big ask from the community to get on that trail and be able to go from Johnson Park all the way down to the monastery. It'd be a great addition. We're still working on that. Increase outreach to veterans. Also increase the number of participants for transportation to active from the waiting list. We have participants from the Senior Center that are on the waiting list. We want to get them off that waiting list onto an active list to get them to and from the Senior Center to participate in the activities that we have planned there. Economic development, increased partnership with local and statewide organizations for multiple day tournaments. This is speaking of the sports world. Tournaments are a big thing in athletics, and when you have these major tournaments, yes, and I know one of the questions may be, what about traffic? It provides a economic boost for the restaurants, the hotels. Right now, our Girls Softball Association has been very consistent with that over the years, and having the multiple tournaments on the weekends, and so it provides a constant boost for us. Seek new grants to support and expand programs for older adults. Quality of life. Want to increase our grant applications and programming for equipment at existing parks. Increase teen and esports programming opportunities. And speaking of, I have mentioned we are working on a partnership with Morris Brown to help young adults and teens experience and explore the workforce side of esports, not just the game playing part, who sets up the computers, who sets up the labs, who does the programming, who does the scheduling. So we're working hard with Morris Brown to complete that partnership as well. Increase marketing of senior activities and opportunities. The education and workforce development continue to work towards our CAPRA process. That is the Commission Accreditation for Parks and Recreation Agencies. And CAPRA simply just stands for the best of the best. There are 192 accredited agencies in the United States. There are only 10 in Georgia. And we hope to be the 11th unless someone beats us, and then we'll hope to be the 12th. It is about a 2-year process. We've been working on it for the past year and a half, 2 years, and so we're narrowing down the home stretch, getting to our final stages, but that is something that we really want to accomplish to show that we offer a high quality of service. Increased marketing of programs and facilities as well.
So,
yes,
dovetailing into the increased marketing of services, is there any way that we can get a presentation of what esports is and everything? Because we did hear some comments about esports and the fact that people don't believe there's a value add to the community, and I think that's because a lot of people don't understand it and don't know what it is and how it is allowing us to pivot, even in the economic development sector, into the 21st century and jobs and things like that. So is there any way that we could do that
Yes, ma'am.
soon so that the general public can see the value add?
Yes, ma'am. I will get that
And so
the agenda.
esports is like some of our other activities. It's a revenue sharing process, right?
Correct.
Where the participants pay a fee, 70% goes to the vendor, 30% comes to the county.
Correct. That is correct.
Okay. I think they
Cleared
thought
it up.
that we were funding that whole thing, and actually it's revenue coming.
No, it's actually a revenue stream for us.
Right.
And Director, I couldn't agree more with both of the commissioners that if you and your team would put together a a presentation. This could be helpful as we move into HOA meetings.
Okay.
Or even a presentation if you come back to a BOC meeting and do one live at a BOC meeting exclusively on that particular topic. She's correct. Of course, you heard it too the other day. Someone referenced, and I think a lot of it is just lack of information, not knowing what it's about.
I think some of it's lack of understanding.
Yes.
I was watching something on the news last night about people are buying virtual real estate. I still, even after I listened to that report, I still couldn't understand what that was.
Your domain name. So your real estate is your domain. So if I wanted Sherry Washington as my domain, somebody will buy it up and I can't, they could sell it back to me. If they bought it for $10, they could sell it back to me for however much I think it's worth. That's real estate.
That just blows my mind with all this virtual stuff. And so, as I'm thinking about it, our citizens, and Rockdale County has a very large senior citizen population who don't have anything to tie esports to understand it.
Okay.
You build on blocks of understanding, but there's not a lot there for some of us.
You going to help us with that?
Yes, sir, I will. Not a problem.
Yes, sir. Next
Okay. As I move along to the social investment, providing programming for more outdoor opportunities. COVID taught us that we need more outdoor opportunities, simply put. When COVID came, the parks was a major place to be. It was one of the few places that you can gather outside and be able to spread out and not be so worried about being in contact with someone. So we want to be able to provide more outdoor opportunities. Also work with Pearl, APS, and local police to increase awareness and advocate for seniors in abusive situations. And Commissioner Williams, I know you're going to ask me what Pearl is, so.
No, I know what Pearl is.
Protecting our elderly and at risk with resources for better living, and APS stands for Adult Protective Services. We actually had a case here in Rockdale in March that was in the newspaper where a senior citizen was taken advantage of, and that person moved them from Chicago, Illinois to Rockdale County, saying that they were going to help them because they had COVID. And I actually took advantage of that. Senior went into their bank account and just took over all of their information. So we've been, Deputy Director Morgan has been instrumental in working with those services to make sure that we're able to identify those type of things. Next slide. So the current organizational chart, the chart is very large. Again, that's why we have 23 slides. This is just an overall view of the chart, and I will go deeper into it as we move along. Next slide. So the charts are broken down, the organizational charts are broken down into functions. 6120, if you look at your top left, that's 6120, which is recreation. And instead of me putting a current org chart, then the next slide, I highlighted it in green so that it'll be all on one page.
Okay.
And your yellow would be your vacancies. The blue is the current. So I just wanted to kind of streamline the slides as much as possible. So there you see we have additional changes. The add elite lifeguard, recreation program coordinator, facility attendant for athletics. We would like to reclass that to a recreation coordinator because there is only one full-time athletic position that we have, and we host a myriad of sports, and esports is an additional sport that we now host that's part of the athletic program. So this person would be able to support these athletic programming. Next slide. He's taking a water break. All right, the next function is tennis center, 6137. We have the tennis center manager. The personnel changes would be to reclass a tennis center coordinator to a senior tennis center coordinator. Also reclass a recreation facility attendant to a tennis center coordinator, and then add an additional tennis center coordinator. So for the tennis center, let me just say that it is a 7-day-a-week operation, and it is open 76 hours per week. And as you all know, 40 hours is a normal business week. So it's doing twice that in 1 week. The tennis center is very robust. We play several leagues out of the tennis center, Alta, USTA. There are individual tennis instruction, and then there are members who come to the tennis center to play as well. So it's very busy. It's very active, which is a good thing. You can pass by on any given Saturday and see a parking lot full of cars, and they are on time, and it does not matter the weather, whether it's hot or cold, they are there. They show up.
That's true.
So, next slide.
They take tennis serious in Rockdale County.
Yes, they do.
No
and they have
doubt.
a lot to brag about. They win a lot of the leagues, a
They
lot of
do.
the alto leagues. Yeah, I see the plaques hanging up, and they put the work in and they get the results out of it.
Yes, they do.
Yes. The next function would be 6180, which is costly meal. The only personnel change there is add operations supervisor to help support the operations manager. Costly meal is booked all the way through January of 2023. We've been booked for most of the year. The phone rings probably close to 100 to 120 times a day. You have that operation manager who is handling the operations and trying to get to the phone and trying to get to the tours. So we just feel that that person needs some support with the operations supervisor to be there to help them in that capacity. And again, costly meal is another place that is open 6 days out of the week. So we're closed on Monday for some cleanup, and Sunday through Saturday we're open.
So one of the things I'd like to see is the revenue coming in from costly meal.
Yes, ma'am.
And versus the expenses, and how is that?
Okay, I can get you that report. Okay. I'll get that to you. Next slide, please. 6200 is the next function, that is park maintenance. There are no additions to add. We just have 3 vacancies, and I believe some of those have been filled since we've completed this because it had to be submitted for the presentation, but there are minimal vacancies there. Park maintenance guys do a great job of working in the elements. They work in the elements, they keep the parks up. Not only do they work outside in the parks, they work also in the buildings. We have minor repairs. Instead of calling a vendor, we have some guys that are on staff that are very skillful enough to take care of the issue without us having to pay a vendor to come in and do it. They're able to do it themselves. So they do way more just than people may see them, ride by and see them on the moor. They do way more than that. They paint. We have one right now that's improving a tennis court for us right now. So they just have a myriad of experience in doing different things. And Mr. Wink Lester, who's been here for 40 plus years, has excellent experience. Anybody who comes in, we put them under Wink for 2 licks for about 2 weeks, and then we release them. So that's how that works.
Very good. He get them straight.
Oh, yes. He get them for me. All right, next slide. 5500 is senior services. There are no additional positions are needed. Vacancies are part-time driver, center aide, and home health aide. And again, if these are not already filled, I know Deputy Director Morgan was already doing interviews, so these should be filled, almost filled, if not filled already. So, next slide. Your budget summary, FY22.
Can we go back to the home health aide?
Senior services?
Yes, and senior services. What exactly does the home health aide assist with?
That is with the home-based program that we have. So we do. They go out into the public, to the seniors' homes to help them with different things. Also, the new program that we have with helping seniors with their home repairs aids in that as well, to identify what needs to be repaired. We had one senior who water heater went out. We had one senior whose roof was falling down. So they're able to actually go in and put eyes on the senior's place of residency and help us understand what needs to be done in case that senior is not able to all the way articulate that to us.
So do you work in conjunction with fire with their, they had the custom, what was it?
The customer care program that Chief Mack has put together.
Could work in tandem so that we have one holistic overview of what's going on in the what's needed from the seniors, and we would minimize or maximize our resources if both of those programs were working together.
Yes, we collaborate with the fire department, as well as a lot of the positions, or several of the positions with the senior services are grant funded. So we have to make sure that we're actually doing the work, because we have to send a report back for the grant with that. But yes, to answer your question, we do work in tandem with the fire department.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Budget summary for Parks and Recreation, FY 2020, the total was $4.5 million. The proposed for FY 2023 would be $5.3. with a change of $848,500. Next slide. The budget summary for senior services FY 2022 was 1.4 million, with a proposed FY 2023 of 1.6, with a change of $191,055. Next slide. So the operational requests for 6120 to reflect the previous slides are listed. 6110 is cultural recreation, is our cultural events side of what we do. The 6120 would be the inclusive participation recreation. And there we see a parentheses. I'm not sure how many parentheses you guys have seen throughout the budget.
This is the second one.
This is the second one, so good. I'm proud that I can present you with the second one. Now, 6120, that total is inclusive of a larger total. But to be honest with you, a big chunk of that is from printing and binding. We have gone digital with several things. We have implemented a 360-degree park tour. We have implemented a program brochure that's digital, as well as the mobile app. So we're able to be reached, throughout the digital world. We still do make copies of the program brochure because, just to be honest, some people just rather things in their hand, they rather the tangibles. So we do save some money for that. But that was an $11,000 decrease, and that's part of that. That $4,000 is reflective of the total line amount of everything. So that's why it's a $4,000.
Very good.
Plus, yes. The tennis center is all the way even at zero. Cost of meal increased by $1,000, and park maintenance, which was the largest one, is $265,690. Reason being, with park maintenance, repair and maintenance. Things break, as we all know. The current climate, materials are back order and they're high, so we had to increase that line item for those reasons. So the total budget impact is $275,490. Next slide. Senior services operating expenses, FY 2022 was $278,000. FY 23 proposed is $379,000 with a $100,879 change. Next slide. The operational request justification, as I touched on earlier, for cultural recreation, it'll be increased contract labor and supplies due to additional programming and special event. Costly meal, increased number of staff able to attend professional development, conferences and training, and park maintenance, again, due to supply fuel service fee costs going up, in addition to an increased number of staff that can attend professional development trainings. For park maintenance, that's very important. We have guys that deal with chainsaws, deal with heavy equipment, skid loaders, so they have to be trained. The chainsaw training is one thing that we make sure every new employee comes in. We try to get them to that as soon as possible. In case there's inclement weather and a tree falls on the trail or a tree is hanging, we don't want that sitting with people walking on the trails and being around them, so we try to get those taken care of as soon as possible. I know you also see the word fuel in there, and yes, that fuel is not for our cars and our vehicles. It is because if we're ordering supplies, they're charging us a fuel charge because gas is going up. So that's why you see the word fuel in that statement. Next slide, please. Operational request justification for senior services, very, very similar to parks and recreation. The repair and maintenance is going up, and again, it's due to the some of this is vehicle ranges, but a lot of it is the supplies and availability of supplies and how inflation has affected us. Education and training, which we want to make sure that we also always focus on opportunities for staff for professional development. Service licenses and fees, the cost has gone up for licenses and fees, so we had to account for that. Anticipated material aid for seniors, information and referral license, transportation for mobility impaired and kinship support as well. Supplies is up due to inflation costs. Next slide. Personnel requests for Parks and Recreation. The requested additional is 3. Out of those positions listed, all of them are reclassed except for 3 of them. And those are the positions that I mentioned when I was going over the org chart. So next slide. Same thing with senior services. Requested additional personnel is 0. All 3 requests are reclassed. Next slide. Request justification for a recreation program coordinator. Again, being able to help with the special events coordination for internal and external events. The tennis center coordinator, as I mentioned, 76 hours per week. So help is needed there with the amount of programming that goes on at the tennis center. And then again, the operations supervisor for Costing Mill to help the manager that is there with the influx of calls that we have gotten. Costing Mill, and I'm not sure if you guys are aware, and I did send an email, I'm not sure if I included everyone. We have a billboard down on the connector on 75, 85. So you can see Costing Mill, you see the upcoming events, you're able to see the concert series being advertised there, and you're able to see some information about Costing Mill. It's actually at the Georgia State, the old Brave Stadium. Georgia State purchased that. It's a big billboard right there. So we were able to get that billboard, and the good thing about it, it comes through relationships. It's us building relationships. It's free of charge to us. We're not being charged for it. And so we get to get that exposure and that marketing right there. That billboard is visible coming into Atlanta and exiting Atlanta on both sides.
So commissioners, we've had our office, I know Ms. Lee has received several calls from excited Rockdale residents who were going around the curb down there and actually saw the billboard traveling and said, hey, this looks good to see the county advertised way downtown Atlanta. They like that exposure. The same response when the summer concert series radio advertisement is on the radio. People just get so excited and say, oh my God, I heard Rockdale on the radio. It's a big deal more than people realize. So, and the fact that through relationships, as the director pointed out, we were able to do a partnership and get that marketing without any cost. And that's really a big deal for us, for that level of exposure in the metropolitan area.
That is.
Okay. Next slide, please. Request justification continue, and again, these just allude to the tennis center and facility attendant, to tennis center coordinator, as well as the athletics reclass that I mentioned earlier. Next slide. Request justification for the senior center volunteer coordinator to project coordinator due to the increased responsibility associated with the position. Social service manager, increased responsibility associated with the position. You have 2 new programs added. 2 of them are in-home senior programs and 2 for all seniors that are 60 plus. The senior center manager will take on more responsibility by having staff report directly to that person, and a new grant program and increased managerial responsibility with facility and overall daily operations. So again, those 3 are all reclasses. Okay. Next slide. So before I get into the thank yous, I do want to say thank you guys for saving the best for last. We appreciate it. Also, my first job coming out of college, I was a high school teacher. I taught school for about 7 years, just stepped away due to a tragedy. One of my kids died while I was coaching them. It made me take a different look, different aspect in life. One of the things that I've always talked to my kids about when I taught school, and even now I still coach, is gateway. You know, what's a gateway? It's something that opens a door for you to have another opportunity for something else. And then I look at I have a 90-year-old grandmother, and at this point in her life, she depends a lot on the support from her family. And she lives in Kennesaw with my mother, and it's an hour from door to door. Lord have mercy. From my house to their house is an hour. And I go up there often because she named me. She named me Jason, and she actually likes to see me a lot. So I'm making my business to get up there. And I think about Parks and Recreation with Senior Services as a division as a whole, and from a holistic perspective, we're there to support in the beginning for the gateway, and we're there to support in the end when the seniors get to that age of their life where they want to relax and be inclusive in their community. So I appreciate you listening to my budget presentation.
Amen.
Thank you, Director Redmond, and thank you for sharing that personal story and your level of passion and leadership with your deputy directors, both Ms. Wilson and Ms. Morgan. It really speaks volumes about what you all do here in Rockdale County. I would just, before I yield to both of the commissioners for comments regarding Parks and Recreation and Senior Services, I will say this. I think with all of what we've heard over the last few days, it would benefit this board as well as the community as a whole to get an exclusive presentation centered around senior services.
Okay.
There's a lot of things that we do. When Commissioner talked about the home healthcare person, there's so much that that person provides coming out of senior services that a lot of times family members of these seniors don't get that kind of support. Right. So I think having a presentation that talks about how much attention we put on our senior community here in Rockdale County for people to really know. So I want to encourage you to get on the lineup with Executive Director Rutledge.
Yes.
And get on the agenda and bring a presentation to us exclusively. That I'm going to yield now, Commissioner Washington. I'll come to Commissioner Williams.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Williams.
Excuse me. Thank you so much for your presentation. And I guess Parks and Recreation are something I grew up with, participating in the local Parks and Recreation programs as a child. I can remember walking, they had a program at a school, on the school grounds, and I can remember my sister and I walking over there, participating in the activities, and just the personal development that occurs because of participation in activities.
Yep.
And I think that's really a big thing.
Yes.
I think that carries on to the senior citizens and the personal development for our seniors in being able to participate in activities and to socialize and to have activities together. That need continues through our whole life.
Yep.
It doesn't go away.
You're right.
Excuse me. So thank you for everything that goes on. I appreciate Director Morgan or Deputy Director or whatever her title is.
Deputy Director
Susan. I appreciate Susan's
right.
work at the Senior Center.
Yes, she does a great job.
And the vitality that's there. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, and I'll just add, I mean, Susan Morgan is the heartbeat of our senior services. All the seniors that participate come in and out of that center. They love her dearly. She knows them and she knows their family members, and she's able to look at folks and just tell if there's an issue going on. But going back to what I said earlier about being able to dispatch people into their homes, even with our Meals on Wheels program, is not just about the meal itself. It's about that companion and being able to interact with somebody, because some of these seniors actually live alone, and some of them don't have family. So they get excited to see the delivery of that person bringing that meal to the house.
My mother used to wait for the delivery just to have that interaction with the person.
Yes. And Deputy Director Wilson, who has come on board as if she's been here for years. I'm talking to some of the staff, and it's like she's been with us for forever. So you've got a great team. We appreciate what you do. Commissioner Williams asked to see revenue for what's happening out at Costly. I think that was a great question. We went through 2 years where the whole system was shut down.
Yes.
Now we're getting flooded. You talked about how you guys are booked all the way up to January. That's a good thing.
That is.
But to be able to look at those numbers and see how the revenue is going to come in and it's offsetting some of the expenses that it takes to operate that park is going to be a big thing for us going forward from a budgetary standpoint, I must add.
So I have another question. So do we have a count of how many veterans live in Rockdale County?
We do. I think the Deputy Director Morgan says she believes it's about 6,000.
Yes.
Okay, and that's all ages?
Yes.
Okay. And so do we have any direct outreach specifically to those veterans?
The
communication, education about services, any of that?
The VFW tonight will be a presentation about that. So yes, about the direct contact that we have with the involvement that we have, the outreach that we have with those.
Is there some way, because not everybody, in fact, most of the veterans don't participate in the two veteran organizations that we have.
Can you repeat your question? I'm sorry, the last part you just said.
So what about outreach to the rest of the citizens who are not participating in those organizations?
We do that through multiple ways. We participate as much as possible in all of the outreach events that the county does, so like the brand new safety and awareness event that happened this past April. We also have cards that we distribute, and then of course with the organization and the direct contact with the veterans that are part of the senior center, which then gives us contact to others. And we have a working relationship with Veterans Affairs. So we're trying to cover it from all different angles.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions?
Director Redmond, thank you so much, and we save the best for last.
Thank you.
All right.
Now that we have had all the presentations, the budget presentations, I want to point out a couple of things. First, those were all the presentations from all the departments, that all the presentations and budget information are in the booklets, and they will be on the website within the next few days. We'll get them on the website immediately. If I may, Chair, I'd like to have a few minutes. I want to thank a lot of people that went into this process. First of all, I want to thank the board for the continued support and the flexibility within this process here. We did something a little different this year in terms of really just presenting the larger departments and the larger requests, but we still have all the budget requests in the booklets, and so I thank you for that flexibility. Our finance team that got together to ensure not only that these presentations were to you in a timely fashion, making sure that the presenters were here, but also year-round, all the work that we do in finance to ensure that your requests from here are enacted through the expenditures that happen throughout the year. So I want to take a moment and pause and thank the finance team, the directors and departments that went into meeting the deadlines associated with this budget process. This has gone on for months now. We've been doing the FY23 process, and the directors have been incredibly timely in getting us the information, meeting with us, going over their requests to ensure that we understood, and making sure that the final product here for you today was cumulative of their request for FY23. This circle would not be complete without the community. There are individuals that have shown up here for the entire 3-day process, those that have listened online, that continue to make this process what it is, ensuring that we are meeting the needs of the community and ensuring that you have the information to balance the resources with those needs. So I want to thank those members of the community that have been here as well. Having said that, I do want to go into the next steps, if that's okay.
Yes, sir.
And so the next steps, October 18th at 6 p.m., we will have a public hearing for the budget. On November 8th, we will have the first reading. On December 13th, we will have the second reader and final adoption at 10 a.m. And January 1st, our FY23 budget becomes effective. Thank you.
What was that last date in December?
December 13th.
December 13th, absolutely.
So let me ask you, when you put this online, this entire report that you've given us, this whole thing is going to be online?
The budget presentations as well as the department requests, yes.
Everything in here, like with the district attorney and people that did not present?
Yes, all the requests will be online, even those that did not present.
Is there a way that a summary of the entire budget request can go up there also, so that people can see from where we started to where we end up with how much we are trimming from what it's identified as a need? from the departments?
Yes, we have that ready to go as well. We have the finance overall budget presentation and cumulative impacts of all the requests.
And Director Lewis, I think that's a good recommendation coming from Commissioner Washington, considering several of the inquiries we received from the public. In your summarization, if you perhaps even show the last 3 years, the trends of the last 3 years, that allows the citizens to compare and contrast what happened 3 years ago and where we are now. The thing about 3 years, you got to remember there's 2 years of COVID. So those numbers are going to be quite different from pre-COVID when you think about 2018 and 2019. In fact, you can go all the way back to 2017 if you really want to be realistic. So bringing us to where we are now in 2022, we're at the post part, at least that's what we've been told, the post part of a pandemic. And the numbers aren't really real until we get to 2023 anyway, because the struggle with this great resignation, this COVID, and now we're on the verge of monkeypox, and we don't know where that's going to take us. All of those things considered, still are trying to create a quantified number that makes sense to talk about where we're going, because in all of the presentations, commissioners, we heard from every one of these directors talking about their challenges. And one of the challenges repeatedly was inflation, cost of fuel, and the high turnover of folks related to that great resignation that we've been hearing. So I think when you do the summarization, which is a great idea, showing at least 3 years. You may want to go back a little further than that, because to get a true realization as to what numbers look like based on spending trends, we have to go back to pre-COVID to be able to identify where, because this 2 years is almost a blur or a mystery to everybody, because we were shut down and there's no real numbers to quantify to make sense. Does any of that?
Absolutely.
Commissioner Williams, any points for the director regarding what Commissioner Washington's bringing up?
I totally agree that summary would be really helpful, not only for us, but, I don't know how many people have time to read all these pages of information. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know how many people have time to read this huge document, and that summary would be really important.
Absolutely. We can make that happen.
Any other comments for Director Lewis? Director Lewis, I want to say thank you to you and your team and all of the other departments that supported this presentation. One of the things that really made it so easy to read and digest and process was the template that you all used this year. There was a standard template. It made it easy for us. It made it easy for the general public because the template was a standard that was utilized by each and every department that came up and presented. When you talk about the vision, the mission, and all of those, the core values of each individual department, that simplified the process and made it easier for the presenter, who was actually presenting the information, as well as for those of us who was receiving and trying to digest all of that information. So we look forward to you reusing that template next year on the next round, because it was really, really helpful going forward through this process. And last thing I'll say, commissioners, I really appreciated them bringing in the big boys and girls of this process without bringing all of this in here, because I think what's important to the bigger picture is where the taxpayers' dollars are being spent the most. He had all of those high players there. He didn't discount anybody because everybody's in the book. But in terms of time management, all of the key players were presented in front of us, and that makes a big, big difference.
So I do have a comment. So one thing I really appreciated about that template was how each department is addressing the Envision Rockdale strategic plan. Because keeping that plan, first and foremost in our minds keeps us on track of what we had laid out and spent quite a bit of time putting together. And so that was really good.
Thank you.
I don't have anything else. Director Rutledge, any other announcements for the general public related to where we're headed next?
No, Mr. Chairman, I think that would do it for today.
Chief Cade?
No, sir, no announcements.
Thank you, Director Lewis. Ladies and gentlemen, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.